My wife and I were watching a lot of Shark Tank. I kept having these ideas of starting a meat company. I knew
Right.
nothing about meat. I
Huh.
did not, I'd never even cooked a steak in my life. I wasn't into grilling or smoking meats or anything like people kind of think.
How did you go from I'm not that person to I'm that person?
I heard God's voice louder than I've ever heard before, and it shook me to my core. And the words were, "You do it."
Welcome back to All Things Possible. Today we have Ben Spell, CEO of Good Ranchers. His story is pretty incredible. He's from a humble beginnings in Louisiana. He was a musician and then went all the way to starting Good Ranchers, which supplies us healthy meat. We're big fans of it.
Only grown in America. And his story is really incredible because he literally didn't know much about, starting a business. And he just felt called and led by God to start this American only grown meat because there are a lot of lies in the meat industry, which you'll hear in today's episode. And so we hope this inspires you and your family to be healthy and to really think about the type of meat you're consuming. And yeah, we just had fun kind of diving into what's it like owning a meat company.
Check it out. All right, Ben. Yeah, we just want to jump in straight into your story. We'd love to hear your background, where you came from, and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, you guys. I'm from Louisiana. My wife and I live in Houston right now, and have an amazing wife, Corley, who couldn't join us today. Have four beautiful kids, two boys and two girls. I say this carefully. I come from a very modest family. When you kind of grow up not having a lot, you don't really realize that you don't have a lot
Hmm.
until you get older. Super loving family, but we didn't really have a lot. Education was not really valued in our home. Neither of my parents graduated high school. Neither of my older brothers graduated high school. My parents just kind of pushed like, "Oh, you should start working. You should start working." And
Hmm.
I was always really good at music. I play piano, I play guitar, I write, and I sing and I arrange. And the church that I was going to hired me. I didn't even know that that could be a thing. One thing led to another, and over the next 5 or 6 years, I found myself being the worship pastor at one of the largest churches here in Houston. And I love to like lead people and lead worship and lead the congregation in those things. And but around 2011 or 2012, one day I was leaving, and I didn't make an exorbitant salary, but I made a good living. Like I said, it was a really large church, and I was leaving one day, and I was getting into my car, which was a very nice car. The guy next to me was just in a complete beater of a car, and he looked at me and he says, "Man, that's a nice car." He's like, "Great worship today. I really like that car," something like that. And something inside of me I just didn't like the way that made me feel.
Hmm.
Working for a church is a real job. You should get paid. It is a lot of work, and there was just something inside of me that God was putting that I didn't like that. So I started praying and asking Him to open up what at the time I was thinking of maybe like a side hustle, even though that wasn't a term back then. Over the next few years, just really went on this journey of doing little side projects, little things. And my wife and I were watching a lot of Shark Tank back then, and I kept having these ideas of starting a meat company. I knew
Right.
nothing about meat.
Huh.
I'd never even cooked a steak in my life. I wasn't into grilling or smoking meats or anything like people kind of think. And I remember the first time that it ever popped in my head, I even told my wife, I said, somebody should do this. And it's funny because I'd been praying and asking God to give me something, and he gives me these ideas, and typical man reaction. I'm like, hey, somebody should do that. But it wasn't me.
Yeah.
It wasn't us for sure.
Okay, so how did you go from I'm not that person to I'm that person?
I heard God's voice louder than I've ever heard before, and and it shook me to my core. And the words were, "You do it." And
Hmm.
so I came out of the bathroom and I found my wife and Corley, and I walked up to her and I said, "I think God just told me to start a meat company." and completely expecting to hear her say,
You're
that's
crazy.
crazy.
Yeah.
We don't have it. Where are we going to get the money? We don't know anything about meat. Where are we going to, what's the plan? All these things, and try to maybe either talk me out of it or talk some sense through it. But I think she could feel the conviction, or see the conviction in my face, because I'm telling you, I heard the Lord, and she looked at me, looked right back at me, and said, "If you heard God, then I trust you." And it was the
Mm.
most empowering words that anyone has ever spoke to me, even to this day. And I will interject the the power of your wife's affirmation for a man is, if it doesn't matter if everyone believes in you, if your wife doesn't believe in you, you're
Yeah.
gonna be you're gonna be nothing. But it doesn't matter if everyone doesn't believe in you, but if your wife believes in you, then that's all you need.
And I like how connected you are with the Lord. Like I feel like when you're walking in his path, like he's going to provide answers and a way for you, not only not only in the Bible, like we're going to see what his will for you is, but when you're walking the path and you have this passion growing inside of you. Okay, what I'm doing or what I'm feeling is going to be something that I feel called to do. And I feel like we all kind of have those moments in life where you're like, oh yeah, I need to be doing this. I mean, like for Bethany, like surfing, like you gotta. This is my passion. I gotta do it.
God always had his hand on me, and I will say that because even from a young age, I remember thinking, when I get old enough, I'm gonna go, and I didn't even realize it until I was an adult, that was God leading me, planting that seed, and putting that there. And
Your passion for
Oh,
music.
I was
I
curious
was
about
curious like
that
that. Like
too.
we're passionate about like teaching our children to play. A little more classically trained, like
Mhm.
doing piano and getting them to play ukulele, and just like how important that is in our like homeschool journey. Like where did your passion for music come from, and do you like pass it on to your children to this day too?
Absolutely. So my mom played piano, and she played classical piano. She told me that she played while she was pregnant with me nonstop, and was be practicing scales and practicing, in her hand and book and things like that. My boys are older, 7 and 6, and they're, almost every single day now they go up to the piano, and they're playing, and I'm teaching them things. But the last probably 6 weeks or so, my wife tells me, like, every single day, because we homeschool as well, so every single day, they both get on, and they'll spend 10-15 minutes at a time just
That
sitting
is,
there trying to play and work and do little things. And so yeah, definitely trying to pass it on. I think everybody should learn music. I
oh
think
yeah.
I do
I
I
did
do think
too.
it's a gift. Yeah. When Saul would ask David to play the harp
Hmm.
to to comfort him, essentially, and like it's definitely my happy place.
I think most people feel this pressure to like work hard and get, there's an endless amount of things to get done. And so, I think for us, our faith grounds us, but also having some sort of outlet, I think, is so important. And I agree with music. I think music is such a beautiful outlet. And I picked up music naturally on my own in elementary school. Thankfully, my elementary school had ukulele lessons, and I just loved
Nice.
it. So I soaked it up and I learned when I was in the school. And then I eventually got my own ukulele, and then I eventually started playing guitar, and that was kind of mostly all on my own. And but then I lost my arm, and so I never really continued that. That was like a big blow for me.
Oh
When I lost my arm,
gosh.
was like losing that musical talent and gift and joy that I had. Music is truly such a gift, and it can kind of like rewire your brain in certain ways, and it's just such a
Mhm.
healthy thing.
With like learn all the stuff around like learning too, like when you're playing music and learning music, like all the school work kind of just pieces in there naturally. Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
So Ben,
Yeah.
so you eventually launched this huge meat company, like to let people understand how well y'all have done. You have I don't know, do you sponsor an Indies 500
Like
racer?
NASCAR and stuff.
Yeah, we've been so blessed, and you said started this big meat company. Um, you, we've been super blessed, and but where we are now is nowhere close to where we started. When we
Mm.
started, it was me selling meat out of the back of a truck in Waco, Texas, in a parking lot.
Oh,
Like
that's
that was
awesome.
Wow.
that
Waco.
that was the grand start of Good Ranchers, and I didn't really spend a lot of time like putting a business plan together. I think when God says go, you should go. We were really blessed right out the bat, right off the gate, and going into our third year is when I realized that there's no country of origin labeling law for beef or for pork in the U.S. That most of what we were buying, if not all of what we were buying at the time, and like I said, those early days, um, was coming from feedlots in Mexico, was coming from South America, was and even though it had a USDA sticker on it, even though it said Product of USA on it. When I realized that, I realized, oh man, I don't want to do that. If we're gonna sell food to people, I'm gonna sell food that I would want to eat myself. I would feed my family,
Yeah.
and so really went on a deep dive of sourcing and how it works, and we set out to source from American farms and ranches only, clean meat that we would feed ourselves, feed our kids, and serve at our own home to our friends and family. And that really was the business plan. It's not rocket science, but
Yeah.
um, went from me selling meat out of the back of a truck, went from one truck to five trucks to 10 trucks to 20 trucks, and by 2020 we were kind of traveling all over the country with a herd, if you will, of trucks going across the
Mhm.
country selling meat and doing these pop-up events. COVID happened, world went nuts. We realized we needed to get online.
I wanted to backtrack a little bit too, because so you kind of mentioned like, hey, like I want to sell meat that I actually want to feed my family.
Yeah.
You didn't really say, why would you not want to eat meat from Mexico or South America, so to say? Is there a reason behind that? Because to me, when I think of that, I'm like, well, wouldn't it be fine to eat meat from South America? While I personally do support like wanting to eat more local and American made and know my farmer, I just wanted to hear your thoughts around that a bit more.
Cattle raised in the U.S. is the best cattle in the world,
Mm.
and we have the highest ethical standards uh, all the way through the process. And
Can you dive into like what is ethical? Because I think most of our listeners might not even know like what's even going on in the meat industry. Like, is there unethical practices? I've seen some crazy things on social media where like I've seen a truckload of candy being poured in to being fed to the animals, and I'm like,
What?
this is messed up. Like, what in
Whoa.
the world? Like,
yeah,
why would they
yeah.
be, feeding complete crap, for lack of a better term, to these animals and knowing
Yep.
that we could potentially be eating that? Like, let's dive into like what's the behind the scenes stuff that you've discovered that
Yeah,
isn't like really well known
yeah,
information.
the things like that, what you just said, and
Is that true?
cramming.
Because I was like, is this just
Abs-
like a random video that I'm happen to stumble across, or is that true? Like, is it really true that they're feeding like Skittles to cows at times?
None that we source. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, most, if not all, of those videos like that aren't happening in the United States.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And that's what those videos don't tell you, though. They don't
Oh,
like, and there's a handful of different documentaries on Netflix against eating meat, against raising animals for consumption, and they show these like they'll
extreme
show these
cases.
extreme cases of these feedlots of the animals just getting crammed in cages and beaten and tortured. Almost all of those videos are happening in other countries where they don't have the same standards of care and practices
Yeah.
that the U.S. has.
Okay.
So that's for that reason. And fun fact, in November of last year, just 2024, we can't even import beef from Mexico right now because of a parasitic bug that is running through through the cattle um,
Whoa.
Yeesh.
in Mexico. So
Mm.
again, it's things like that, and thankfully we were ahead of the curve because it was I think it was in 2020 when I made the decision that we're only going to source from the U.S. We're not going to source anything from imported from whether it's Mexico or South America or a ton comes from New Zealand as well. And again, my issue is the consumer should know where it's coming from.
Yeah.
You have the right to know what you're putting in your body. And the way the law sits right now, it can come from all the way across the world. And as long as it gets repackaged in the US, they put an American flag sticker on it and call it Project USA. So the consumer just thinks, oh, this is I'm
Yeah.
buying meat at the grocery store in Texas. It probably came from Texas. And the truth is it couldn't be further from the truth. So what we're not we're not just saying that it's bad in other places. That's not really what we're saying. Even though the U.S. graces the best beef in the world, and I'll hang my hat on that. Um, uh, but what we're saying is the consumer has the right to know that
Yeah.
what they're putting in their body, food is fuel. Food is what literally sustains us. We need air, we need water, we need food,
Yeah.
and you are what you eat. That's not I mean,
Well,
that's a real statement.
and you talk about it seems like you're doing things with excellence, and like as Christians, like we're called to do things excellently, and like in all areas of life. And sadly, like I don't know, this might step on some people's toes. Like the Christian community, for some reason, will not emphasize enough. Like we need to treat our bodies as a temple, and like make sure what we're putting in our bodies matters. Like going to Wendy's, going to McDonald's is, you know, I mean, I know it's affordable, but dang, like that, I don't, where's their meat coming from? Like, where's that food coming from? Is that fueling your body the way it should? Like, we need to like treat the way what we eat and what we put in our bodies in a very,
Yeah.
very intentional way. So yeah,
Yeah,
man,
but
great.
the affordable conversation is
That's a tough one too
don't
because
well
that's
yeah,
going
but
downhill.
don't get mad at me. A lot of times it's a
Yeah.
cop out though because people
Mm,
will y- you're where your heart is where your treasure is.
mm,
And um again, this isn't a blanket statement. For some, it's absolutely the case, but for a lot, it's just we're just not even thinking about food. We don't understand the import. So many people just don't understand the importance of food in their body, and if more people, I do think that we're waking up to it,
Yeah.
yeah.
um, but I don't know how it's probably better in Hawaii, but I mean obesity is a massive issue in the States. Like it's a massive
Yeah.
issue, and and it's directly because of the crap that we're being fed, and it's because of the government regulations allowing the crap to be mass produced and
Yeah.
Yeah.
sold. And it's not a price thing. It tastes good and it's addictive, and I want to keep eating that.
That's scary.
Yeah, so on one hand, you mentioned earlier how America has better kind of laws surrounding meat production, and therefore we're going to have better quality meat. Plus, maybe we have farmers that care a bit more or haven't adopted to some of these like really dark approach to how they farm their cows and stuff like maybe in foreign countries. But I hear you in that like we should have transparency, and so that kind of makes me question the USDA. Like why is the USDA essentially allowing lying to our people when it should be more transparent? It should be the truth, and yet we're being fed essentially a lie. And I just think that's so frustrating because how am I supposed to trust the USDA when I'm hearing otherwise? And so, as a government, the government should be seeking to be honest and truthful, and the people should be able to trust the government. Yet, there's so many consistencies like this across the board that are not full of truth and are very misleading.
And really, this whole thing started when we started having kids, and when we started looking at labels and we started learning the inconsistency of ingredients and labels, we that's really what like ignited the spark inside of us to start Good Ranchers, is because we wanted to know that what we were putting in our bodies, what we were feeding to our kids was good. Everyone doesn't have the time to crawl through the lines of the ingredient list and of the sourcing, and find a USDA establishment inspection number and go trace that back to, well, where did this actually come from, and looking at those things. Like I said, we started just selling meat because we didn't know anything about it. But as we continued to go and learn, we realized, wow, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, on both sides, for the consumer and for the farmer. And we exist to connect the American family to the American farm. And frankly, like, you as a mom, you've got 4 kids, you're homeschooling. Like, you just need to be able to, you should just be able to have a source that you can just buy from and trust that this is good for me to feed my family and my kids. That is what we set out to do. That's why with the chicken nuggets that you were talking about earlier, uh, you know,
You guys, let's
um,
pause for a second. Their chicken nuggets are so good, and I've been like, we've tried to
Our,
make our own homemade
oh,
breaded chicken nuggets
well,
because we would refuse to buy the ones from the store. They're just not
yeah.
good for you. They
Look
have
at the ingredients,
the
and our
ingredients.
boys are like, those are like, get those. Are like, no, sorry guys, we're not buying that. Sorry.
But man, the Good
But then
Rancher
the Good
chicken
Ranchers
nuggets are
like
so
the
good.
boys are stoked, and we feel good about
yeah.
it.
And
And,
sometimes, like, we get to the end of the day as a homeschooling family and, like, working from home too, and just a lot on our plate. And some nights it's so nice to just have, like, something you can just throw in, and then you make a side dish, and it's pretty easy going dinner.
we worked for almost 2 years to be able to get those into production because we could not find somebody to make them, that wouldn't fry them in seed oils. Like,
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
and finally we had to just put our foot down and say, and I had to tell our team, if we can't get them made without seed oils, then we're just not going to make them, because there's enough seed oil crap on the market. Why do we need to put out another one? And
Yeah.
Hmm.
it's one of the most proudest moments that my wife and I have as business owners
Oh,
of Good Ranchers, to be able to proudly say that we put out the very first seed oil free chicken nugget in the US, if not in the world. I know in the US it doesn't exist, because here's the thing, back to the
Thank
tricky
you.
marketing stuff. There's there's 2 things here. Every USDA department is different in every region. We list on the ingredient list that the breading is set in avocado oil, meaning it's fried in avocado oil. And then we go a step further than that, because most avocado oil and olive oil and all your other oils are still cut with seed oils. And
Dang.
as long as and they don't even have to get listed.
Hmm.
As long as, I don't know what the percentage is, but as long as it's over a certain percentage,
see,
they
more
can.
lies. That makes me so mad. As a mom, you're just like, why
Oof.
is it such an uphill battle? And like, why can't we have some honesty here? Like, this is so wrong.
We have a third party seed oil. We're seed oil free certified, meaning a, a third party inspects the out and does a, I don't know how they do it exactly, but they extract it and they test for 100% purity in the olive oil. I'm sorry, in the
Mm.
avocado oil.
Okay.
So we're seed oil certified, at that. Not everywhere that production happens, do you have to list. If you just blanch it, so you can, if it's doesn't stay in the oil for less than, I'm making this up, I don't know how long it is, but I think it's somewhere like 6 seconds, 10 seconds. If it's So they'll set it in canola oil or these seed oils, and then they'll finish it in the oven to get away, and then they don't have to list the seed oil.
Interesting.
That's
And
so
if you're not
weird.
like if you're listening, and you're not
It's
familiar why this is a big deal. Like
I would
seed oils.
watch this
Oh
documentary I was a part of.
yeah.
It's called Fed a Lie. It's all like debunking this. And it's hard because even, if you start engaging with seed oil stuff on social media, there's like kind of this war battle. And I think the other side is a lie personally. And since we cut out seed oils, like for example, I get way less sunburn than I used to. Like I'm very like I don't eat a lot of nuts and seeds like I used to, and I don't get sunburnt nearly as bad as I used to. So there's something to be said by just testing it out on your own. But do your research, dive
Yeah.
in. It's going to be a hard battle though, because I swear there's people being paid to like try to,
It's not
you
that
know.
bad. Like there's total correlation between obesity and heart disease when seed oils were introduced in the food supply. So that's why it's a big deal. That's why we're frothing on Ben's chicken
Yes,
nuggets.
chicken nuggets.
We feel good about
Yeah.
giving it to our children. That's like, our children are powerful in many ways, but it's just amazing. Like when you have children, you start thinking about things differently and you be more intentional about what you're feeding your family, how you choose to do your schooling. Like we choose to do homeschool because we want to protect and prepare our children for the world and give them the tools so that they can thrive. And one of those tools is teaching them how to eat right and play
Yeah,
piano.
it's actually really cool. Like, we talk about health a lot because I'm super passionate about it. So I talk about it with our children, and they truly are gaining their knowledge via just everyday living with mom and dad. They'll make healthy choices because they know and they now care. And so
Yeah.
I think having these conversations as a whole family is important because you don't want it to just be like mom and dad said no. Like we don't
Mhm.
eat, red dye 5, for example, and
Mm.
we'll go to a birthday party and my children will willingly scoop the frosting off the cake if it has, the dyes because they just know that it's not good. And
And they're not bummed.
you don't
They're
want
like,
to
good.
eat
Yeah.
that. A lot of times families will adopt the like, oh, it's every once in a while, but every once in a while adds up. And so there's this idea that you get this toxic load. And at some point, if your toxic load gets too high, that's when the issues start kicking in. So if you continually allow yourself or your children to eat these toxic foods over and over again, eventually that toxic load is going to tip too far. And that's when the issues start to kick in. So know that every once in a while will add up at some point. So I really want to encourage families to get more information and education around health so that we can
Mhm.
help lead this country to kind of come out of this dark age of unhealth and unwellness and start leading our next generation to be more healthy.
We owe it to our children to do those things, and
Mm.
it's not the easy thing to do is to just let it slide, and it's not easy to be the parent that says no, you can't have that, and we do our best to explain those things as well. But it's really hard to tell a 6-year-old you can't have Skittles. Like, and I can't. My kids they play sports. They play soccer and basketball, and at the end of every game, it rotates where the parents make like a snack bag,
Oh yeah.
and we're that all organic, healthy, seed oil free snack bag, no red dye,
Yeah.
uh, and then but the thing I watch all the kids, they dive in, they eat it, they love it, they don't they nobody turns their nose up and goes, oh, like this is gross. But then the next week there's like ring pops and Skittles and Airheads and stuff, and I'm just like,
Oh,
oh my
such
gosh,
a
why?
bummer.
Oof.
Like we don't need to be giving this to our children. They need real nutrition. They need real food.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think
Um,
like one way we balance out in our home is we do make treats. Like we bake homemade cookies and we make yummy good things, and every once in a while we'll buy the healthy version of certain types of candies and that don't have a lot of the toxic load that the other candies might
There's
have.
options out there.
So
Yeah.
it's not like our children are just have never had an ounce of sugar, we're not so extreme
right.
that they feel like they're being deprived. And I find that they're fine missing out on some of the more toxic options when we're out and about because they know that like we're not withholding so much to the point where they're like, I really want the like cupcake with the red dye 5 on it. I feel like everyone's looking for encouragement and balance. We are. It's just this continual trying to find harmony in the day to day.
So, one part I left out earlier when I came to Corley and I said I think God just told me to start a meat company. What I left out is we had a 3 month old baby at the time. We had just had our first born baby boy. So not only did we not have any money, did we not know anything about it, but we also had a newborn
In the thick of it, yeah.
in the home. So we started in 2018, and then we had number two, our second baby boy, at the beginning of 2019. Then we had our baby girl in 2020, and then our second baby girl in 2022. We went into last year, 2024, going, "Hey, this is the first year that you're not pregnant, or we have a newborn. This is going to get easier." And but I think we can be real and honest. Like it's really, really hard when you have so many young kids.
I feel like everybody we meet, so like treasure these moments. We're like, okay, yeah, we'll
We're like
treasure them. But at
cross-eyed
the
when
same
we
time,
wake
like,
up in the
I
morning.
can't wait to sleep good. And
Yeah,
there,
it's
there was
like
one
I
friend
mean,
I asked, and there's like his children are like in college now, and he was the one person. It's like, hey, do you miss your children being like our age? Like we were backstage somewhere and we had our children running around. He's like, do you miss your children being this small? And he's like, honestly, I don't. I was like, yes, finally someone who's like truly
I think
honest.
Adam's gone in for the tween and teen years for adventure time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the babies being a little
I
older.
love the baby stage
It's
though.
good.
I mean, the sleep aspect's been pretty hard, but I really enjoy. Like lately, our 4 and 1, almost 2 year old, they're just such a joy. Like I just have full
They are.
entertainment all day long. Like I don't have I'm like no TV. I mean, I am engaged on social media, but a lot of times I feel so satisfied with just watching them and enjoying them and the
It is good.
unique faces and noises. It's to gawk over.
we used to say all the time, like, man, what was life? What were we doing? What were we even doing before we had kids? Like,
Yeah.
we were created to create life, and there's no greater joy than to be a father and mother,
Hmm.
and trying to instill that in our kids. And I think it sounds like you guys are doing the same thing. um, we want to teach our kids to work hard. We want to teach our kids to love the Lord, to work hard, and to be good humans. Um, but we're teaching our kids that one day get married and start a family and have their own family, and have their own babies. And we have those conversations. You can have a career, you can do those things, but it's like you should be instilling in your children that it's okay to have children. I mean, the irony of what I'm saying, like, think about it.
It's a
Like,
weird conversation because you're like, why are we even having this conversation? But society has gone backwards a lot in the sense
Yeah.
that the amount we're procreating in America in particular is, I think in 25 years from now, there's not enough young people to care for the old people.
Hmm.
And so it's going to be this odd,
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot to it. I don't have all the stats, but I've seen some information on this, and it is an interesting kind of devastation, I think, because people are missing out on this God-given gift and beauty and this stepping into maturity as a man and woman to care for someone who needs you and to give them life, and yet you receive so much joy, and you also receive like, whoa, I really need to grow in certain areas, and you're challenged, but all the while it's just truly is such a gift. And I really hope that our family will be able to inspire a lot of the younger generation to want to have families, because actually a mentor friend talked to me. She's like, yeah, my 17-year-old just got social media and you were one of the first people she followed. And she's like, Mom, look at Bethany. I want to have children just like her. And I just about melted over that statement because
uh,
That gives
I do
purpose.
share a
Yeah.
bit
To
of our
being on there.
family life on social media. I know some people are very anti that, but I think there's a need to inspire. A lot of our young people are on social media, and this is where they're getting their information. And I know the anti family movement is strong and solid on there. So I hope that we can counter that a bit and be like, guys, I've done a lot of rad things in my life, like surfed some crazy waves, like done just super rad things, traveled all over the world, and yet raising my children is truly like my greatest joy.
No matter how much you say it, it's until you experience it yourself, you just have no idea. It's
Yeah.
Right.
and again, and it's not easy. That's the thing. We were kind of talking about this earlier, but like not giving in to the candy and the crap and the sugar and the red dyes and seed oils. Like it's not easy to do those things. It's not easy to raise kids.
Mhm.
In any capacity, it's not easy. It's very hard. But put here. We're not put on earth just to do what's easy.
Easy.
Like nobody ever said that it would be easy. But is it worth it? Absolutely. Is it fulfilling? Absolutely.
Well, Ben, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you being just open and honest about how you are intentional with your family, and it inspires us to continue to be intentional. And I hope this inspires others too to seek ways to really pour into their families' lives, but also what we
Nourish your family as well. And
yeah.
We're rooting you guys on from Texas.
All right, we'll
Thank
be sure to
you.
stop by next time.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Ben Spell. I loved his encouragement and reminder that life's not supposed to be easy, and all the best things that life has to offer are really hard, and yet there's so much joy and beauty to be had. So I hope you're encouraged today to think about the hard things that we may be facing right now and how we can work through them, but also to do the best you can for your family and nourishing them and loving them well. So hope you guys can take the time to like and subscribe to our podcast and help us to grow in that way. Thank you so much. God bless.